Well, hey everyone, welcome to Our City Online. If we haven't had the chance to meet yet, my name is Jeremiah, and we are so honored that you chose to spend your time with us today. And if it's your first time checking us out, we are so glad that you're taking time out of your day to join us. Just know that you are loved and valued by whoever shared this with you today. And wherever you're watching from today, why don't we take a moment right now to copy this link or hit the share button and send this to at least one other person that we know that can use some hope and encouragement in their lives today. We'd also love to connect with you beyond our online experience and to find out how we can serve you and your family. And the easiest way for us to do that is by you filling out a connection card. And as a bonus, every connection card that gets filled out today and every share that happens on YouTube and Facebook will provide meals for kids around the world who are in need. So it's an easy way for you to get engaged and to do some good today. Well, as we continue our service, we're going to take some time and worship together. So why don't we take a moment right now to prepare our hearts and our volume as we sing a few songs together.
Let the King of my heart be the mountain where I run, the fountain I drink from. Oh, he is my song. And let the King of my heart be the shadow where I hide, the ransom for my life. Oh, he is my song. 'Cause you are good, good. Oh, 'cause you are good, you're good. Oh, 'cause you are good. King of my heart, be the wind inside my sails, the anchor in the waves. Oh, he is my song. Let the King of my heart be the fire inside my veins, the echo of my days. Oh, he is my song, 'cause you are good.
You're never gonna let me down, and you're never gonna let me down, not for a moment. And you're never gonna let me down. No, you won't. 'Cause you're never gonna let me down, and you're never gonna let me down. 'Cause you're never gonna let me down. No, you won't. 'Cause you're never gonna let me spoke a word as you were singing over me. 'Cause you have been so, so good to me. Before I took a breath, you breathed your life in me. You have been so, so kind to me. And oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99, and I couldn't earn it, I don't deserve it, still you give yourself away. And oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Hey, you're always running after me, running after me. When I was your foe, still your love fought for me. 'Cause you have been so, so good to me. And I feel no worth, 'cause you paid it all for me. 'Cause you have been so, so kind to me. And oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. And oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99, and I couldn't earn it, I don't deserve it, still you give yourself away. And oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. You're always running after me. You're always running after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, you're coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, you're coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, you're coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, you're coming after me. And all the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. And oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99, and I couldn't earn it, no, I don't deserve it, still you gave yourself away. And oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God.
Well, in just a moment, we're going to have a chance to be generous together. But before that, think about this. There's a lot of things that we have to do with our money. We have to pay our bills. We have to pay our taxes. We have to buy groceries. And those things aren't bad. They're actually needed. I don't know about you, but I don't get a lot of joy from spending my paycheck on those kinds of things because I have to do it. It's not like I'm smiling each month when I write the check to SoCal Edison. But every now and again, I get to do something with my money. A little present I buy for my kids just because, taking my wife out to dinner for our date night, or helping someone when I see a need. And that's how I feel when I give to God through our city church. I don't feel like I have to give. I feel like I get to give because I've decided to do that. And that gives me so much joy. And in this season, because of COVID, life has looked a lot different, including the last few holidays we lived through. There's a lot that we have to do now because of guidelines and regulations, but we still get to do amazing ministry here at our city church. Ministry like the Halloween event that we had last night. Because of your generosity, kids and families in our community still got to celebrate safely. Now, I may not feel much when I pay my bills, but when I am generous to our city church, I know that I'm choosing to do something eternally good with my money, because giving is a sign of faith and trust. It also provides a deep sense of joy. And I can say that I have never regretted $1 I've given here. And right now, you have that same opportunity to give to something that's making a difference. You could be generous today in a few ways. You can click the link to give online. You could also text the dollar amount that you want to give to 84321. You could also sign up on our app to give through there. You could download that in the App Store. And above all, wherever you are in your generosity, you can become a recurring giver. Recurring giving allows you to budget for generosity. It also allows us to budget for the ministry we do, and then we get to change the world together. Would you take a moment right now and pray with me as we pray over today's generosity? God, we thank you so much for the generosity that is in our city church and the hearts that give so faithfully to what we're doing here. We thank you for the work that we get to do, the ministry that we get to be a part of in our community and around the world. We pray that you would take all of today's generosity and use it far above and beyond what we could have ever done with it had we kept this money to ourselves. Would you do this? In your name we pray. Amen. Well, today we're kicking off a brand new series of talks that's very timely. It's all about how we can navigate our lives, our faith, and the tensions that we carry surrounding the idea of politics, especially in this season. And Pastor Chris is here, and he has an amazing message for us. So before we jump in, this is your last chance to go get your coffee, your Bible, and something to take notes with, because we cannot wait to share this incredible message with you today.
Our City Church, welcome. I am so glad you're here today. If this is your first time, I want to introduce myself. My name is Pastor Chris Harrell, and I'm the lead pastor here at Our City Church. If someone sent this link to you, I just want to take a minute and say thank you for coming in, being a part of our community, and giving us a chance to share our portrait of Jesus, of the Bible, of faith, spirituality with you. And we really hope today that this is something that will help your life. It will improve your life. It will even change your life today. If you have a Bible, I want to invite you to open it up to Matthew chapter 22. We're going to look into a story involving Jesus where he was in a real conflicted kind of a conversation, and there were people that were actually out to try to catch him and really hurt him, hurt his name, hurt his ideas, and even really kind of hurt him physically. And so we're going to talk about that in just a moment. Today we're beginning a series of talks that we're going to be doing right around everything going on in our nation here in America. I know we have people watching all around the world, but you're also watching how our election is going to go and everything going on with that. And so what we're going to do is I want to talk today, and we're going to talk next week and the week after that, just kind of about pre-election, election, post-election, and kind of what we believe God's heart is for us. And I want to tell you that today I want to share my heart, and I also want to share my learnings, the things that I've been learning, the things God's been showing me about myself, and I think about also just our church and even just the church, the church of Jesus at large, and some of the core values that I believe in, and I think that need to be found in every single follower of Jesus. And so we're going to talk about that. Some of these things are uncomfortable because they're political, and when you have politics get brought up with religion and spirituality, it's so conflicting because we disagree and we're passionate about those disagreements. But I want to help us, I hope, be able to kind of like back away from the things that usually we find our identity in, that allows us to be so bound to one idea, and really go bigger than that, go beyond that, and look into the scripture, look into God's heart, look into how Jesus handles a very politically charged conversation in his day, and take some of what he did and what he learned and how he managed that, because that's what we have to learn to do. We have to learn how to manage the things that are hard for us, and the things that are hard for us are usually the things that we're afraid of. And this morning, my daughter, her name's Eliana, and she's 4, almost 5, and early this morning, my wife goes early to the gym, and my daughter came in, and she was upset because she realized that mommy wasn't there. And as she was really upset, we had to take a long time, longer than I wanted to, because I wanted to go back to sleep. Took a long time trying to manage that and help her kind of settle down and figure out. And so she sat up and she asked me a question she's never asked me before. And she said, "Daddy, are you sad?" She had tears in her eyes. She'd been crying. And she said, "Daddy, are you sad that mommy's not here?" And I said, "No, I'm not. I'm not sad." And she goes, "Why aren't you sad, Daddy?" I said, "Well, because I know that mommy's coming back." And then she said, "But I'm still sad." And I said, "Well, when I feel sad like that, there's something I do that helps me with that." She goes, "What do you do, Daddy?" And it was such a really great conversation. What I said to her, I said, well, I asked myself a question. I asked myself, is mommy never coming back? And then she was so cute. She goes, and then what did yourself say? And like, what did myself, my inside other self say? I said, well, what myself said was, no, mommy is coming back. And then I asked myself another question. She goes, what'd you ask? And I said, I asked myself this question. Does mommy always come back to us? And she goes, and then what'd yourself say? And I said, yes, she does. So those two questions helped me slow down my emotions, my worry, my nervousness, and lean into truth, and to remind myself of a bigger truth than my emotions feel in this moment. And it was so cute to watch her begin to process some other way, another tool of dealing with current fear that was real to her. Whether or not it was real doesn't matter. It was real to her world, and I wanted her to have some tools to be able to deal with that and to manage that. And I wanted to adapt to where she was at and not just try to get her to be where I'm at. You need to be where I'm at. Why can't you see what I see? I was like, I want to try to do what I can to hear where you're at and help her grow into a place of being able to settle herself. It was really a powerful illustration, I think, of what is needed right now in our current climate, our current methods, our even current approach, and not just in our nation and not even just in our culture. I would even say as a challenge, we find it in the Church of Jesus, where there's this inability to sit with people in their own fears, in their own hurts, and in their own perspectives and listen. And we don't know how to do that. If I were to take my interaction with my daughter and apply the way I have been watching us do this, I would have told her, well, I don't know why you're tired. Don't you understand that, like, she has to go do this, and this is what she does. She always comes back. Like, you know what the problem is, Eliana, is that you don't understand that, like, she never gets enough time to herself, and then I just tell her all these things. Like, that's literally the way that I often have seen us conduct ourselves. And I think Jesus shows us a better way. And you need a better way, and I do too. Why? Because we are in these discussions. We have an election coming up in a couple days. Some of us are going to be very happy. Some of us are going to be very sad. And some of us are going to probably lose perspective and not understand that there is some truth that's bigger than this. And that's what I want to help with. I want to help us be able to deal with people, with ourselves, with our faith, and with our fears in a way that I think Jesus teaches. And it's really rooted right here in a beautiful story that is just as politically painful and difficult and charged as the one that we find ourselves in our own nation here today. And so I want you to do something real quick for me. Type in there and then, or say it out loud, there and then. Everybody say there and then. while you're typing that or listening. If you're new around here, every week we preach from this perspective, and for my whole ministry life, I've always preached from a perspective that I've called there and then. What that means for me is I want you to know what was happening in the story of the Bible we're going to look into each Sunday, there and then, before I try to tell you what to do about the here and now. Because if you do not understand the world the Bible was written into, then the words of the Bible can be misconstrued to just mean whatever it is that you want it to mean. And it meant something then and there, and I want you to hear what that was. There and then, in this story that Matthew records, Jesus is towards the end of his public ministry, and there's this ruling group of religious leaders called the Pharisees, and they are not happy with Jesus because he's changing the rules. He's adapting them. He's introducing a wider group of people that are allowed to be loved by God than the Pharisees were comfortable with, than they believed was allowed, and they're not very stoked. Not only that, Jesus is starting to hint at him being like God or equal to God, or he has power to God. He's healed people. There's really crazy stories that have happened already. And so he's got this massive following. People are starting to pay more attention to what he has to say, less to what like they want said. So they're losing power, they're losing control, and they're losing their minds. And instead of being able to demonstrate God-like character, they're demonstrating human, selfish brokenness. And this is all taking place. So the Pharisees get smart. They go get this group called the Herodians. The Herodians are a group of people loyal to Rome. And Rome is the ruling, governing party at this time. Caesar is the head of Rome. And the Herodians want the Jewish people at this time, they want the Jewish people to submit to the power of Rome. They want them to kind of like assimilate into and reconcile the Jews to the Roman government. That's the Herodians' goal. Well, the Pharisees want total freedom from Rome. They want their people, the Jewish people, to be able to be disconnected from that. And they're like, no. We're all about the liberation. We want to be free. We want to be liberated from this oppressive like power. And so that's their passion. So they have totally two different goals. One wants them to be connected to this idea of like what Rome's about. And others are like, no, we need to be free, right? Totally hard concept to grasp, I understand. But that's what was going on there and then. So the Pharisees go get the Herodians and they go to Jesus, and they're going to try to trap Jesus and catch Jesus in some stuff that I want you, when you learn what was happening and what was happening in this context, there's a lot that's going to apply to our lives, and it's going to teach us how to deal with the few days coming up and the weeks and months and years after that, if we will actually do what Jesus models here. And what he does is transformative. What he does was brand new in its day, and I believe it needs to become new again to many of us who have never learned what he does. So let's catch up. Matthew chapter 22, verse 15. This is what it says. It says, then the Pharisees went out and they laid plans to trap him in his words. Okay, so that's exactly what they're there to do. Next verse. It says, they sent their disciples along to him along with the Herodians. Teacher, they said, we know that you are a man of integrity. So they're setting him up. We know that you're a man of integrity, not just that, and that you teach the way of God in accordance with truth, and you are not swayed by others. Okay, you stand alone on your ideas. Your ideas are perfect. We know this about you. I mean, it's as disingenuous as it gets, because they're there to trap him. They're trying to butter him up, set it up, trying to make it look like they are dignified, respectful, but really they don't want to do it. They are wanting to be ugly-hearted. They're wanting to catch him, and they're wanting to either get Rome to want to kill him or the people that follow the Jewish law to want to kill him. But they're trying to get rid of this dude because they just want him gone no matter what. And it says that because you pay no attention to who they are, like you don't care about anything. So tell us then, ready? Here you go. Here's the trap. What is your opinion? Which I just want to stop there before I read the rest of that. That is a dangerous question when you're dealing with people who have no desire to have an honest discussion. When there's an angle and it's all about getting to their angle, they don't ask questions for good conversation's sake. There's not an emotional maturity, a sharing of ideas, a desire to actually listen to something that they may not even agree with. Nobody wants to listen to what Jesus has to say from the Herodians group. The Pharisees that go there, they're not there to actually engage in a discussion of learning and an exchanging of ideas. No, there's an angle here. And listen to me. anytime someone is asking for your opinion from that perspective, you have got to learn either to be quiet or do it as Jesus does it, or else you're not going to get far and it doesn't work. And part of the problems a lot of us are experiencing in our families, in our homes, at our jobs, wherever else you find yourself is because you go against how Jesus models, how he trains, how he shows us to do it. And I think that silence is a better option. And if you can learn this, then this is the best option. And this is how they ask, is it right to pay the imperial tax to Caesar or not? Leave that up. Is it right to pay the tax, the imperial tax? Well, see, the imperial tax at this point is something that rubbed the Jewish people the wrong way. They're like, we don't have a king except our God. We're Abraham's children. We have our own king, and he's God, and we shouldn't be subject to any of that. So they would tell anyone, we don't have any rule. And that was the Pharisees' whole angle, was to kind of prove that they are liberated from the control and the power. We want to be on our own, on our accord. We don't have to submit to that idea, right? So that's their whole idea. Well, here's the deal. The Herodians are like, if he answers that and says no, then we get to go see he's not with it, man. He's against Rome, and now Roman officials can come and imprison him, and they can arrest him. And if he says yes, then the Jewish people can say, see, he doesn't believe that God is our king. He believes that these ruling places and principalities here on earth are the king. So Jesus is caught in a really difficult situation. Have you ever felt like that? Have you ever felt like you were in the middle of an impossible conversation, that it didn't matter whose lives you loved, it didn't matter who you were married to or what their fear was of how things were going to go. You were not allowed to even speak on it without introducing the wrath of the other side. This is exactly what Jesus finds himself in. They perfectly placed a perfectly lodged time bomb grenade that you can't answer without enraging the other side. But what does Jesus do? He shows us exactly how to manage it. And it's so brilliant, it's so powerful, it's so amazing. But I want you to know why. The Talmud was a Jewish book of leadership and of sayings and truths and things to be followed. And in the Talmud, it was taught that you could not name that there was a king. And once you spoke to that, that meant that you were acknowledging that the king was real. And that you acknowledged that they were there and they had authority. And if they had authority, then you needed to be respectful and representative of that. And so this is kind of like a part of what is in their understanding. So they don't want to say that Caesar is king or that he has any rule. And the Herodians want that. Now watch how Jesus responds. It's so brilliant. But Jesus, knowing their evil intent, said, you hypocrites, why are you trying to trap me? Which I love. I don't recommend you going that way unless you're perfect and the Son of God. And since you're not, this may not be the best opening. But I love that he just calls a spade a spade. He's like, look, this ain't real. What you're trying to do is trying to trap me. And he goes on, show me the coin used for paying the tax. And they brought him a denarius. Now, this is why that's so interesting. Because he doesn't say Caesar. Bring me the coin with Caesar on it. He doesn't say Caesar's name because once he did that, then he would be siding with. He's so wise. He's so smart. He knows how to finally walk the line because he's like, I'm not going to let you bring my kingdom into this tribal warfare between the Herodians and the Pharisees, between Rome and the freedom that the Pharisees want. I'm not going to come into that. That's not what my kingdom is here to build. I'm up to something way bigger than just this. And all of a sudden, he's like, hey, bring me the coin. And they brought him a denarius. And then he says this, whose image is this? And whose inscription? Whose face is on this coin? And whose inscription? Jesus asks a question to them. And he asks them a question that makes them actually have to acknowledge that there is a human king. So the Pharisees are going to be trapped back because now they got to go, well, it's Caesar. Wait, what do you mean it's Caesar? Aren't you now verbalizing? Doesn't your Talmud say that once you verbalize it, now you're actually saying that there's a king that needs to be submitted to or at least acknowledged or that you have to work with in this broken human world? That's a part of the way it works. That was their custom. That was their culture. Not only that, the people who are the Herodians now are going to go, well, he's acknowledging it. He didn't say it, but he was wise enough to ask for it. Whose inscription is this? And they answered, verse 21, Caesar's, they replied. And so then he said to them this brilliant response. Okay, well then give to Caesar what is Caesar's and give to God what is God's. So Jesus answers this question in a way that is so brilliant. But what's most important that I want us to begin to lean into is this. He doesn't begin to make accusations. He doesn't begin to just dress them down. He's just like, I know what you guys are up to, and watch this. Bring me the coin. So he lets them then say who's on the coin. He lets them be able to unveil that they have an angle. And then he says this brilliant phrase, but it doesn't make sense to us. What is he really saying? Well, he's saying something really profound and powerful here that if we can grasp a hold of it, I think it sets the tone for how we manage our election here in the States, how we manage the post-election, how we manage people who are going to be way happy and way sad. And to begin to calibrate, wait a minute, where does my faith and trust go? Well, Jesus says, give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar, give to God what belongs to God. See, here is what he's beginning to let them know. He's beginning to let them know that Caesar has some things that he's got coming to him, and so does God. And if you go back into it, he's like, hey, you're going to have to give to your boss what belongs to your boss, but you give to God what belongs to God. Give to your spouse what belongs to your spouse, but give to God what belongs to God. Give to your kids what belongs to your kids. But when you begin to disconnect and actually begin to think that what you are giving to your family, your work, your job, your political party, social media, like your friends, that then it starts to be like muddied. And it's now you're telling yourself what I'm giving to God is what I'm giving to them, and what I'm giving to them is what I'm giving to God. He's like, no. Give what they've got coming to them, but make sure you give to me what I've got coming to me. Well, where does this come from? Well, in essence, it's like you have to pay the tax. But don't forget that what's most important isn't the tax you pay. It's what's going on inside your heart. And this goes back to something that happened at the very beginning of time. In fact, in Genesis chapter 1, verse 26, the Bible writes how God made us. And he says this, he says in Genesis chapter 1, verse 26, he says, then God said, let us make mankind in our image, in our likeness, okay, in our image. Everybody circle image or write image. He made us in his image. And then it continues to say in verse, so God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God, he created them, male and female, he created them. So God made himself. The fullness of God is found in the expression of a male and a female, uniquely created by God to be uniquely expressing components and attributes of the Godhead, only found in a male, only found in a female, but the fullness of it found functioning together in society, looking at us. There's certain things that you can only get about God from a female. There's certain things you can only get about God from a male. It's the beautiful way that God made it. But most importantly, what we read from this is that God made us in his image. What's that mean? It means we reflect the image of God. The creation of God is us. We are that image. So when Jesus says, bring me this coin, and then he says, whose image is on the coin? Whose image is on the money? I was like, well, Caesar's is on the money. Then he says this, okay, well then give to Caesar what has his image. And what has his image? Money. What has his inscription? The tax. You got to do that, okay? You got to live in this world. You got to have hours you don't like. You got to work for bosses that don't appreciate you. You got to have professors that aren't fair. You're going to have like tickets that you don't think you deserve. You're going to have things that do not function correctly, aren't fair, aren't right, aren't good, aren't true. Caesar isn't fair. The whole corrupt system that Caesar functions in isn't fair, isn't right, isn't true. And he goes, look, you got to function in this world and you're going to have to pay the imperial tax. Give him the thing that has his image. But what is it that has God's? Give to God what has God's. What is it that has God's? God put his image not on a coin. He didn't put his image on your material possessions. He didn't put his image on anything. You know what God put his image on? He created you. He put his image on you, your soul, your heart, your mind, your life. He says that's what you should give to God. Give your life to God. Give your life to him. Surrender, serve, get to know, introduce his attributes, his characteristics into the day-to-day way that you live your life. This is what God calls us to. And he then says, he lets us know, look, if you'll do this, then even when who's in the Roman house is Caesar, is doing things evil, wicked, terrible, bad, things that you would never want, even when the candidate you vote for doesn't win, or even when the candidate you vote for does win. He says, look, Caesar let's be honest, Caesar was, a brutal dictator. He was a violent, terrible person. He murdered, he killed. Dude, he had babies killed. Like, the Roman government was a very ugly, terrible, evil thing. So what does that say? Is it like, so Jesus says to give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar, but Caesar's killing innocent people. He kills families. He kills babies. So what, Jesus? You with killing babies? You with killing families? No, that's actually like a really terrible breakdown of Jesus's heart and intent. What he's saying is this planet is a broken place, and there are broken things happening, and there's broken things taking place. And what is going to happen is that you're going to have to make peace with the fact that I'm here to help you get through that. I'm not here to take you out of it yet. You're going to have to pay the temple tax. You're going to have to deal with the Caesars in your life, the bosses, the husbands, the wives, the in-laws. You're going to have to deal with stuff that isn't fair. You're going to inherit stuff that is heartbreaking and difficult and not fair, not right, but there is a way through it. It's not a way around it. It's a way through it. And what is the way through it? Well, what does Jesus do? He does what I wish I would have done in early 2000s. I needed a car. I was right out of college, and I was a part-time youth pastor. And I went and I researched, I don't even know what it was back then. It was like the Penny Saver or something like that. And I remember that I looked up a bunch of different cars, and I finally found someone they were like selling it. It was a great deal. And this was one of the first times I'd ever tried to buy like a nicer car. But to me at that time, a nicer car was $3,500. And I'd saved it up. I had worked for a long time. Some of you, if you've known me a while, you maybe have heard this story before. But if you haven't heard it, I think it's vital, it's important, and I think it helps with what we're talking about here. So I find someone that knows a lot about cars, and I begin to ask the person who owned questions, and I begin to ask the person who knew about car questions. He comes, examines the car, looks at the car, the whole 9 yards. He's like, it runs, it sounds good, I did my own checks, everything's looking good to me. You're good to go. Cash in hand, pink slip in hand to me. He's off to the races. I take my car. I'm like, oh man, let's go get it registered. I go to the DMV. I don't know anything about anything. I'm learning about how things work. Like, I have my ideas. I have what I've learned. I have what I've been taught, but I don't understand the bigness of the conversation until I get to the DMV and the lady goes, cool, awesome, yeah, and smog certificate? And I go, what? Smog certificate? What do you mean, smog certificate? Yeah, and it's gotta be smog. Anytime you register a car, you have to demonstrate proof of smog. And I'm like, oh, sorry, simple mistake, my bad. Let me go get that. Call the dude, hey, smog certificate, by the way. Oh yeah, no, you're gonna have to go get it smog. Oh, okay, okay, he goes, yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, let me know, okay. And he just kind of gets the phone. I'm like, that was weird. I take it to get smog, won't pass smog. You need this sensor. Get the sensor, put it in, won't pass smog. Turns out that there was something so broken within this part of the engine that it wouldn't allow it to idle correctly, and it over idled. It was never gonna not do it unless I overhauled the whole thing and spent more than I paid on the car. And now all of a sudden, something that I got into as a result of the people that I trusted, people that I asked. I trusted this person, and I trusted my friend, and now I'm stuck in a totally disappointing situation that I never saw coming. And really, when it comes down to it, I got there and it was super disappointing because I didn't know how to ask better questions. I didn't know how to ask for a smog certificate ahead of time. I didn't know how to ask my friend, will this pass smog? And in life, when we are the kind of place that we get disappointed, we get frustrated, or things don't go the way we saw them going, usually if we back it up, it's because we had a limited perspective and we didn't ask enough questions. When I consider what's going to happen in this election, I think that often what happens, especially in Christianity, is in America, we put too much stock in who ends up in the White House. And I've said it before, and I'm going to say it again. I'll say it every single election until I die. I don't think that it's most important who's in the White House. I think it's most important who's in my White House, because my skin is white, and who's in your black house, and who's in your brown house, who's in the yellow house, the red house, purple, green, blue, purple, whatever it is that we all are. Whatever you are, it's most important who's in this house. And when I begin to think, Wait, imperial tax, yes or no? Caesar, yes or no? What am I supposed to do? And I want to argue, and I want to catch Christians, and I want to catch like people who are following God, and I want to make sure that I could put them in this box, and they're over there, and we're over there. Whenever I do that, I'm trying to make giving to Caesar what is Caesar's and giving to God what is God's the same thing, and they're not. Jesus makes it plain. He goes, look, there's some stuff in this life that is evil and broken and wicked, and you got to deal with it on this planet. How you deal with that, I would recommend you ask some questions. Learn to ask better questions. Learn to ask questions that lead you to truth that you don't have. Even if that truth ends up being something disappointing where you don't have a car or whatever, it could end up saving you so much more pain in the process. And what we have failed to learn how to do is to sit down and ask questions and then listen to answers. And that's what Jesus does. He asks. He knows that there's an angle. He knows that there's no real honest discussion that wants to go on. So he works on it. And see, this is the deal. You can't just listen to your media outlet. You can't just go on social media and think you're going to be some informed, educated, question-asking, calm, clear, collected person. You're not. Like, the whole thing runs on fear. The whole thing runs on division. The whole thing runs on tribal warfare. The whole thing runs on anti-Jesus characteristics. And if we are going to be the church in these days ahead, if we're going to be the church of Jesus, not the church of you or the church of me, but the church of actually Jesus the Christ, who he was, we're going to have to learn how to give what belongs to this world, but to give what belongs to God alone. And too often what we're doing is we're giving our heart, our mind, our soul, our emotions, our mental health. We're giving all of that, which is what Jesus said. Love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Love your neighbor as yourself. He said, I want you to do those two things. Those two things matter to me more than anything else. And what we end up doing is we give our heart, mind, soul, strength, not to God, but we give it to a political party. We give it to who's going to win or who's going to lose. We give it to like all these other things, ancillary things that, yes, they're important and they belong a part of your life and you got to do it. And it's a part of what it means to be in a Roman government and to live in a world like that. And Jesus didn't come and smoke out Caesar. Caesar stayed in there. But what he did do is he set us free from sin, and he set us free from the ugliness of disconnect, and he set us free from the ugliness of disagreement. And I think that the world is looking for leadership. I think they're looking for Christian leadership. I think they're looking for Christ-like leadership. What does that look like? Well, it looks like different to a lot of people, but what it looks like to me and what I think it looks like to Jesus is somebody who can see that there's hypocrisy, see that there's an angle, and can go, I got a question for you. Could you bring me that coin? Whose inscription is this? Okay, well, fine. Give to God, give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar, give to God what belongs to God. Can you spend a little more time not trying to do like some grab and stab accusation of whatever the opposite viewpoint is, but can you learn to ask some questions that actually get someone thinking about the viewpoint that they share and maybe the limitations that their viewpoint isn't the holistic, perfect one that Jesus has? Because if we could do that, I think we'll uncover a better conversation and a better emotional, spiritual environment in our homes, in our friendships, in our relationships, in our workplaces, if we can learn to do that. I mean, what would happen literally if we actually did what Jesus did in this instance? If we asked questions, if we got to the heart and the root of it, and we put it on people to be able to say, well, I can't really answer that, or I don't want to answer that, because then we're going to end up actually like having to look at the fact that there's incompleteness to a part of my viewpoint and that the truth is not on one side. It's actually somewhere in this messy middle, and honestly, it's even bigger, greater, grander than what our human best that we've created can come up with. I think that helps settle it. And this is what God's been reminding me, that if I've learned anything, I've learned the need to ask better questions and listen a little better and begin to understand that it doesn't matter who you vote for. There is a part of God's heart you are going to break no matter who you vote for. And some of you may have never considered that. But the reality is you're not voting for a perfect person, a perfect candidate. You're going to vote for something that hopefully represents policies you believe are most, as a Christian, as a believer in Jesus, that you believe most represent the heart of God. I find the problem is that some of us actually have this confused idea that the thing that our heart is connected to the heart of God now all of a sudden is the wholeness of all of God's heart. I want to tell you something, that if this next Tuesday, your vote is for one of the two major candidates out there, that no matter what, if it doesn't matter if it's Joe Biden or Donald Trump, let me tell you what you're going to do. Either one of those votes is a vote for some things that will break the heart of God. The end. Why? Because there's some things on both sides of this discussion that break God's heart. You don't get to just have the whole heart of God. God's heart is bigger than your political party. It's bigger than your vote for any president. You will always break God's heart with your vote. Why? Because you're voting for a sinful, broken human system. It is the best out there. I am proud to be in this nation. I'm glad I have a vote. There's nowhere else in the world I'd rather live. But it is still flawed and imperfect. It's an attempt to form a more perfect union, but it certainly ain't a perfect one. And I understand that, and which is why I have friends who are on all sides of the discussions. And I can do that because Jesus teaches me how to do that. The shame I think and I find, and the embarrassment I find as a Christian, much less a pastor, is when I see Christians incapable of having discussion with people they disagree with. And we're going to be disagreeing. We should be disagreeing. It's healthy. But we should do it through more questions, more listening than I see happening around. And I think that the world is looking for a church like Our City Church, a group of people that, yes, we're passionate, and yes, we believe, and yes, I hope all of you vote. But we've learned how to do what Jesus did and say, I got some questions I want to ask you, and it's going to probably challenge a part of your perspective. And it makes someone have to go, wow, I was listened to enough that you asked an intelligent, informed question, and it isn't just grab the headlines from whatever outlet you go to and you just start trying to interject it, thinking any progress is being made. It hasn't happened, it doesn't work, it just hurts and divides us, and it's not the way Jesus did it. I want to challenge all of us in the days ahead to step away and to find some better questions to ask, to find some questions that we allow to be asked of us, and to search, hey, no matter what you and I agree or disagree on, is there a way we could disagree and still look like what the world is looking to Jesus to find? Because if not, where are they going to find hope? If they look to the church and they look to the way that we handle our disagreements, and it's so abusive and ugly, I mean, where's the hope for the people who don't even know him? And I don't want to be a part of that broken system. And so I want to challenge us today to focus on the right house, which is the house that God sits in. It's your own heart. It's your own way. I want to challenge you today to do this, and maybe even write this down. Ask great questions. Don't make accusations. Ask great questions. Don't make accusations. Ask great questions. Don't just go try to grab some you just care about, and you don't see, and you don't care, and the problem with is you know, that isn't taking us anywhere. Our world, our culture is leading the church, sadly, in a day where the church should rise up and learn how to stand up for what it believes in, disagree with each other in a way that when people watch us do it, they go, now that America needs more of. And that's what I hope we're going to be able to do. And we can do that with our passion, with our beliefs, with our heart. And we should be able to do that coming into November, heading into Thanksgiving, post this real rowdy election, and be able to do it with the same spirit that Jesus taught us all those years ago when they wanted him to take a side. Pick a side. Is it government? Is it Rome? Is it the way things are going in this world? Or is it going to be the liberation of our people? And Jesus is just like, give to God what belongs to God. You were made with the image inscribed on your heart of a God who loved you. That's what he wants you to give to him. And he wants you then to treat people who are not where you're at in a way that asks better and greater questions and listens instead of just making accusations of who they are and what they're about because you and them don't see eye to eye. Let's show our world a better portrait of faith, of who Jesus is, of what spirituality can look like. And I think they're hungry for it. And I would like, for my part in this, that's what I've come to learn. I want to be better at, and I want my church to be better at doing. I want to be a light in a dark approach to disagreement. And I think that it's ripe for that. And so the light is always brighter than the darkness. The reason things feel dark is because what's supposed to happen when you turn the light switch on doesn't. And I think it's about time that the darkness of how we're doing our world, our politics, our faith, I think it's about time that darkness has light get turned on and shone brightly in the way that Jesus wants us to do that. Let me pray for us. God, as we endeavor to go through what, honestly, every generation of church-going people have had to do since votes were allowed in any place, we're having to figure that out on our own. It's just our turn. I certainly don't believe that we've got it tougher. It's always energetic or salacious to say this is unlike anything before. But I don't know. I grew up in my grandparents' home a little bit, and when I would listen to them, they would talk about how hard the days were that they lived in. I just think it's our turn to be in the tough days of our world. Would you help us to give to Caesar what Caesar has and that we have to function with, and to give to you what belongs to you? That you have written us on the palm of your hand, that you've inscribed your image on us. So let us give ourselves to you and help us to deal with the broken parts of being in a government ran by brokenness. And it doesn't matter who wins the election. Ultimately, they're still a sinner. They're not Jesus the Christ. And there's going to be a part of every platform that is not doing things that your heart cares about. That will be heaven. That will not be earth. And until then, we groan with the pains of earth, and we do our best to invite the parts of heaven that we believe need to be here. And I pray, God, that you would help us to show the world what that looks like, to disagree with dignity, to be able to listen louder than we speak, to ask questions that are great and not to make accusations. God, I ask that as we do that, we would be focusing on the right house, the house that you're building in our own heart. And may we take that at our city church to the world. May we take that to our homes, to our children, to our jobs, to our schools, to our friendships, Lord. And may that, for whatever influence you're going to give our city church, may that change the parts of the world you've given us permission and influence to change, God. That's my humble prayer for us. That's my humble desire. And I invite you to do that in my life and in the life of everyone who calls our city church their home and is looking to us, God, for a picture of you. Make that picture true before mankind, and may we change the world together. I pray this in your name today. Amen. Amen. Hey, I love you so much. I again want to thank every one of you who make this possible to go around the world. I never want to take for granted those of you that are sacrificially faithful and you're giving. And I know there's a few that began to do recurring giving. Thank you for that trust and for helping us be able to, through these uncertain times, still be able to do what God's called us to do, to tell people about him and show them the Jesus that we believe can change lives and impact them for eternity. So I love you. Thank you for that. Let's go change the world this week. We'll see you next Sunday to continue our discussion all about these things that are passionate and important. Let's change the world together. Love you, church. Bye.
Well, thank you, Pastor Chris, for that amazing message. It's such a powerful start to this much-needed series of talks. And thank you for tuning in today. If you haven't had the chance to subscribe to this channel, make sure you do that. You can hit the subscribe button. You can turn on notifications so that you can see every time we go live or when we're posting new content. And if you like today's message, would you let us know by hitting the like button? You could even share this with a couple of friends who you think need it today. Before we go, it's already November. And we've really enjoyed getting to spend some time together as a church these last few months. Our birthday event was so great. Our Halloween event last night was amazing too. And we're getting together again in November. This month, we have a chance to serve our community and to love our city together. And we'd love for you to join us. You can get all the details. You could even sign up at ourcity.church/loveourcity. Well, church, until next week, be good to each other. We love you, and let's change the world together.